I'm in a different capacity today. I'm the moderator. I almost forgot what I said. I am the moderator today for this beautiful panel with my beautiful African brothers, warrior brothers, and we're going to learn a whole lot today. I think I was given this task because I'm not the traditional moderator. I kind of like to add some humor, be cool with the whole, you know what I mean? Sometimes you go to these panels and it's all stiff and you in the back sleep and all that. You won't be asleep here for two reasons. One, it's going to be educational and entertaining, and two, you got some dangerous brothers on this joint. Sleep on them, might not wake up. We're going to enjoy what we're doing. The name of this panel is Traditional Armor, Arms and Armor in African Martial Arts. I know I jacked the name up. Probably gonna look at me like you knew about this for 4 months. Don't mind me, I'm a little slow. It's still early in the morning. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off introducing from the left, and we're gonna make our way back down this way.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Akim Kobola Donaldson. Maybe you can tell I'm from London, England. I live here in Atlanta. My master instructor, I'm an instructor of the African Martial Arts Institute. Ekbe Ogun, wrestling is our system. My master instructor is Balogun at the end there. I've been training in martial arts my whole life, in indigenous martial arts for the last 8 years. It's my lifestyle, it's what I do, this is why I'm on the panel. I live and breathe it, and that's where my expertise are. Glad to be here today.
Greetings, my name is Damon. No last name, I'm just like paying respect to Prince. So I'm from Austin, Texas, and my martial arts has been a part of my life since I was a youth. I actually started off with sword fighting. My father, when I was 6 years old, he gave me a toy sword, and I remember playing with that sword until it fell apart, and that's what ignited my my desire for martial arts. So not to give away my age, but I've been training for about 30 plus years, and I started off with East Asian martial arts, and I slowly went from East Asian arts to Southeast Asian arts to the African and African diasporic arts. My base art, as far as empty hand, is capoeira, but I have experience with other weapon systems, and currently am part of an organization called HAMA or HAMA. Brother here, Kurt Johnson, is also part of the organization. It stands for Historical African Martial Arts. And what we're doing is reconstructing African warrior traditions, from the Middle Ages and from the ancient times. Making weapons, making armor, studying what accounts that are available to us about how these armies and how these weapons fought. And we'll talk more, I guess, about me in a little bit, but yeah, it's my honor and pleasure to be here.
I tried to get Kurt to sit up here with us. He was doing it, so just so you all know. Since he was embarrassed then, I think it's more now. I'm Balogun Ojtade, co-chair of this event. I wear a bunch of hats, literally and figuratively. This is my 44th year of training in indigenous African martial arts. That's all I know. Much to, my father always said, go train in other martial arts. It'll bring you right back to the African one. I tried that. He wanted me to go out more, and I just couldn't, to be honest with you. I've done Kuk Sul, I've done some Wing Chun, and to be honest, and I'm not being funny, there's no comparison. And it shouldn't be. The reason why, a lot of times we'll see martial arts and we'll say, the African martial arts, we say, oh, that looks like jiu-jitsu, that looks like Greco-Roman. Probably because the human body can only move so many ways, but also the African has touched so many people with their art. There's been cultural exchange. If you think that we didn't travel, particularly coastal Africans, then you're mistaken. And there's trade, and so there's trade of martial arts. The indigenous African way is, if I'm wrestling, I can mobilize, and I don't know him, I beat him. He asks me, okay, how did you catch me with that? How did you catch me with this? And I show him. I don't say, oh, that's a family secret, right? I teach him, and then he teaches me something that he caught me with, and then we both learn that way, right? The sporting aspect of wrestling is one thing. We call it all wrestling. You go to the continent and you say, I'm looking for martial arts, they're going to send you to a taekwondo school, they're going to send you to karate school, and not call what they do martial arts. They consider that Asian. If you go and ask for wrestling, that's why you'll see wrestling on our shirt. Now you start to actually learn. If they respect you. If not, they'll send you to, or trust you. If not, they'll send you to an actual sport wrestling. And a lot of times they won't even teach you. But if they respect you, they know you family-wise, and they will teach you. So like I said, this is my 44th year of training. This is my 28th year of teaching. And I've been teaching here for 17 years in Atlanta.
Cool. We have a lot of comrades as far as, organizing, movement work, so on and so forth, that come from different systems. Many of them have Asian systems, so on and so forth. What has been your experience since we're taking this, I'm saying, the 90s start trouble. What has been your experience with a lot of these different instructors, you all coming from an African perspective?
Instructors in what, Asian art?
Yes, because of course we do have some comrades, friends, associates.
Well, it depends regionally. I'm from Chicago, and in Chicago, I had a school with a friend of mine, Stan McKinney, who's a black man. He's actually the person who convinced me to teach publicly. I was only going to teach my children, my wife. He brought me to the school, and he had a poster of Muhammad Ali on the wall. I said, why is Muhammad Ali here? He does Shuri Goju. He's a 10th degree black belt in Shuri Goju, and he's much older than me. Shuri Goju, and 10th degree black belt in Kempo. I said, why is Muhammad Ali on the wall, man? He said, well, we need some African warriors on the wall, so that's the closest I could get. And it hit me because he said, because the children need African warrior images. And it hit me like, man, I've been given this skill all my life, and I'm just going to teach my children. And that's when I began to teach publicly. Difficult. How can you come off the line? It's difficult if you make it. Can you stand up for a second? First of all, we simplify everything. If you notice, we're saluting. He's my student, but we're saluting at the same level. Because there's no big I's, little U's. Because on the battlefield, I have to rely on him to be skilled. And I don't want him to feel like I've been over him, dominating him, because he may turn his back the moment I'm about to get my throat slit. Okay? So we're talking about simple things, are things that indicate what the indigenous African martial arts are about. But if he comes at me to punch, right, I don't have to do all this stuff. Here, I can, but all of this, I'm still on the line, so he just goes in and throws a punch right there, I still get hit. Do all my pretty. When he strikes, I'm off the line here. I have total control. We say if you give a person your back, you become an ancestor. To become an ancestor, you got to leave this physical frame, right? And all I did was this. He's here, I can be in any position. He's here, I just move off the line. He's here, anytime I move off the line, I have his back. Or if I move off the line this way, I'm dealing with this. This would be somebody who is not that skilled. Now I'm dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weapons, right? I step here, I'm dealing with 1, 2 at best. And I have his back. Hips, I have his back. Once I have his back, then he becomes an ancestor with no problem. Okay? If you notice, I'm doing this, people say, well, you're supposed to do sleeper hold like this. Well, it's not called sleeper hold. But when I choke here, can you hand me that knife, brother? Thank you. Another indication, sport, when we're talking about sport, combat. Sport, you see this in MMA all the time. And that's cool to choke like this, but if I have a knife in my hand, turn around this way, and he's stuck, I'm cutting myself. oh, God, ow, ow. As I'm choking him, I'm cutting into my flesh. It makes no sense. So we choke this way. I can still put him out of here, and I'm in no danger of being cut. You see? Then I cut him. Then I cut him. Okay? So we make sure we don't kill ourselves. This, you're cutting yourself. So when you see that, you know that that is pure sport. It's the sport interpretation of combat. And it's not even as effective a choke. And it's so it doesn't kill him. It knocks him out in a few seconds. But this, a lot of space here. This, not so much. His neck doesn't have that much space. I'm compressing his neck. I can crush his windpipe in addition to compressing his carotid arteries, which is what I'm doing to knock him out. But it also can crush his windpipe. You'll see this. We call it a cable choke. They've named it a Gables choke or whatever. This, if I crush his throat, that's sport. Because if your throat's crushed, you have about a minute and a half before you expire. Now I want you all to count just 30 seconds. Can you count that for me? So I count. Count out loud. Look at you.
1001, 1002, 1003,
Throat's been crushed.
1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010, 1011, 1013, 1014, 1015, 1016, 1017, 1018.
You see how much time you have? A minute and a half? Who in combat is going to take a minute and a half? The technique that takes a minute and a half to kill you. So you know that that is sporting when you see that. Okay. Just want to give those examples.
Note to all you all, do not crush Balagoon's throat. Might not be a good response.
May I take a
Yes, sir.
I wanted to speak on simplicity. This is something that with blade work specifically, and presenting African sword work in comparison with Asian and European sword work, is kind of some of my struggles that I've kind of encountered in explaining what we do, and Filipino sword work as well. So the Asian systems are extremely complex. They're so complex in their sword work that their forms, they don't really know how they are applied anymore. So now there's a movement in Asian and Chinese sword blade to actually take these forms and try to really understand how they are applied. The results are a less complicated sword form. Less complicated sword form. The Europeans, their sword traditions survived in either 18th or 17th century saber work or sport fencing. And then they actually have the benefit of having some manuals that depict long sword fighting, sword and buckler. They have a few like written sources, and even still, they're doing a fair amount of guesswork with what they have. But they do have a very structured way of teaching and presenting material. The Filipino arts, the same thing. Very, very complicated in its approach. But all these things, when it comes down to actually being in the midst of facing someone, they become very, very simple. And in my mind, I compare it to boxing. Boxing is probably one of the most, useful bridging arts that you can have in your arsenal. You have 8 punches. You have footwork. You have movement. And then you take those simple concepts and you tailor it to yourself, to your attributes, to your style. You develop your style with those simple elements, and through that you create a complex fighter that could, a person that's been training boxing will more likely be able to outdo a martial artist who hasn't been trained to the same level, that's been put in 20 years. because the way they train, simple techniques, but they train with real time, sparring, they condition, and they fight under pressure. And not many martial artists train that way. Therefore, 2 years boxing versus 20 years of martial arts, you'll see a big difference.
Here, walking stick, we call it middle staff, is a typical weapon that's used throughout. The one way in which we utilize the weapon, when we talk about simplicity, the movements are simple. They may look complex to you all. Hopefully, I can pull some folks out of the audience and you all can do this yourself, and I can show you how simple it is. But he's attacking, give me number one, he's attacking with the weapon. I'm here. After here, I can trap up with the weapon, hit, take the weapon from him, right? And so I have this weapon. Now this translates to something that Demond hates, the spear. Right? Now, typically the way the
And let me stop you real quick. You see that dude right there?
uh-huh.
The one, that one? I hate him.
He's the one hitting. He's talking about somebody
the man right
hitting him with the spear. One thing that we do as far as, and I like to speak more in terms of West African because of cross-pollination, you'll find this in different places, is we call it disappearing, the weapon. So this weapon here, I can fake, I'm here, I can't reach him, but to what we call a slide, I can reach him all day, right? So we call that the slide. He goes to stop the slide, I disappear and I hit him.
How do traditionalists feel about training women? You keep saying men.
I keep saying names, I'm talking to a man. Tell them the percentage of the art that is female.
70%.
70% of African martial arts come from women. And the reason why, and so there's no wrong. 70%, and my sister, hey mama. 70% of African martial arts come from women on the continent. So, and the reason why, it makes sense. In fact, Jazz, you got muscles. Can you come up here? I got muscles. Can you come up here for a second? Come on up. We know he weighs 200 and something. Okay? If she is going, now, if you ask me, how would I deal with him choking? I can strengthen my way out, or Kurt, right? Come on up here, Kurt. Come on, Kurt, let's see. Grab Kurt around his neck. How you know? Just grab him, like, get out of there, Kurt. See, Kurt's using strength, and see, Kurt knocked it off with strength. Now, grab her around the neck. Now, do that same thing. It ain't happening, right? It's not going to